So let's go ahead and create our first surface for the bottom part. I'm going to turn on the symmetry function, and then let's go to the rail surface. I have everything selected, +2, 2, and this one for a moment I set to 0. And then I'm going to select my different generation curves in the correct sequence. I'm going to skip this curve because from here to there I would like to have a bigger distance or longer distance, so the transition from this flat curve into this very detailed curve is a little bit longer. Then I could click go or press space bar, select my two rails, and then Alias is creating that surface for me. And let's turn off the lines. And again, let's go back to the continuity, because you can see that here we have a sharp edge. There you don't really actually see anything, and that is basically because we have a nearly perfectly matching rail here. So the rail is actually a continuous circle. That means, of course, the rail provides a perfect smooth path to create the other side. But here, for example, if we zoom in a little bit, you notice that this upper part here is good. It's nice. So this is more original to the rail, but then those points are a little bit pointy. And if I go into the bottom view, you can see the same. The surface edge that flows along the rail, the lower rail curve, is good, and here it's pointy again. That's something we don't want. So let's take a look. This is generation 7, so that is our last generation curve. So we can set it to tangent maybe. And then you see if we set it to tangent, the implied tangent, it's getting softer. However, if we zoom in, you can see it is not as pointy anymore, but it's still somewhat pointy. So now if we set this to implied curvature basically means G2. So we have 2 points kind of like that pull out or flatten this edge, in contrast to G1, 1 point that flattens out this edge. It's a little bit nicer and softer. Also from here, for example. So we can leave it there, maybe. And if you want, can set this to curvature as well, but it's not really doing anything to the model that necessarily makes it really visible, because the generation curve 1, 2, and 3, and 4, they're basically all the same profile-wise. So we can leave it at this. And then, as you see, if you, for example, take a look at the Alias manual, I have here the lower part of my bottle just created out of one surface patch, the Alias model. Let me hide this rail. For example, created a surface that is kind of like built like this. They use one patch, and then they redo the step, and then they go from this curve to this edge. I'm now sampling the edge of my surface, so I'm not using that curve. And then select my two rails. Oh, I was still selecting the generation curves. So generation 1 and generation 2, spacebar, rail 1 and rail 2. and then generation 2 in this case is not implied, but actually it should be G2 curvature, simply because with the way how I sampled my curves, you noticed, or I remember, I did not select the generation curve I had here, but selected the edge of that rail surface as my input. Because I have a tangible surface, I can basically tell Alias now to, from this profile, create a surface that then blends perfectly into this surface. And let's zoom out and let's turn the locators off. That surface doesn't look too bad as well. It's actually visually good. I have not set this to implied curvature yet. However, only because it looks good doesn't necessarily mean that it will not maybe cause you problems afterwards. And because I have two edges or two surfaces, and later I'm going from the side, put a logo over here and cut through it, it's just making it more complicated for Alias. And this surface is so easy to build, so it's more inviting to create this object as one instead of creating it out of two different patches. So something like this is just giving you the same result, and it's much better.